Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, being in the middle of the week and all. I wanted to talk with you very briefly. That is my hope about something that the Lord is showing me. And perhaps at some point in our life, whether it was before salvation or even after salvation, this can happen where we have done this thing. And what's in my heart to tell you is don't be a Shemaiah. Don't be a Shemai. See the Shemai or Shemai? Don't be a Shemei. And I'm going to read to you who this man was. Shemei was of the lineage of Saul. And in 2 Samuel 16, David was fleeing from Absalom, and as they're in exile and then they're heading to another place to be settled, Shemei came and he was throwing stones at David and basically saying, oh, look at you now. In a nutshell, he's mocking him, he's scorning him. Oh, you thought you were so great, you were the king, but look at you now. Because of the things you've done, look at what's happened to you. It's very dangerous for believers or non-believers alike when you rejoice in what you think is, someone's downfall, when in fact, David was getting ready to get the throne again. Sometimes that person is going through their transition and changes, and it appears at the time as if all is lost because they're no longer in a certain position, because somebody else has taken, someone else is on a throne, someone else is in a different position. So you find that the times when you're going through things, that's normally when you find the real heart, the true nature of someone's heart will manifest itself when you're going through your transition. And when it seems like you've lost everything, things can come out. When you have to stay at someone's house because things have changed, maybe your house has gone up for foreclosure, maybe you got divorced, maybe you no longer have the job you had, maybe you're in the hospital, maybe some things happen with your family, you will see how at times people will get that smirk and that disdain. Things will happen in your life, just like with Job, and people, they're saying to him, you must have done something. There's no way God is doing this to you and you haven't sinned. And sometimes people believe you sinned and you're getting your just reward. But we have to be careful. Those who do that to us, and you must be careful that you don't do it to other people. That's why the Lord tells us not to rejoice when things happen to our enemies. Why? Because guys, sometimes it's just best to have that disposition to not rejoice than you're rejoicing in something where in fact God has not laid his hand towards this person. They're just going through a transition. And so I'm going to share with you guys in 2 Samuel chapter 16. You can read it on your own, the whole thing. I'm just going to read you a portion of it. And this was when David and all his guards with him and all, his wives, they were fleeing from Absalom. And so they were going through a specific city. So 2 Samuel 16:5 says, and when David came to Bahurim, behold, there came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shemei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed, still as he came. So as he's coming on, he's cursing at David. And he cast stones at David and at all the servants of King David. And all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. And thus said Shemei, when he cursed, come out, thou bloody man, and thou man of Belial. The Lord hath returned upon thee all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned. And the Lord hath delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son. And behold, thou art taken in thy mischief, because thou art a bloody man. Then said Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, unto the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over, I pray thee, and take off his head. And the king said, what have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord hath said unto him, curse David. Because the Lord hath said unto him, curse David. Who shall then say, wherefore hast thou done so? You see the meekness of that? And David said to Abishai and to all his servants, behold, my son, which came forth of my bowels, seeketh my life. How much more now may this Benjamite do it? Let him alone, and let him curse, for the Lord hath bidden him. It may be that the Lord will look on mine affliction, and that the Lord will requite me good for his cursing this day. And as David and his men went by the way, Shemei went along on the hillside over against him, and cursed as he went, and threw stones at him, and cast dust. Do you see the attitude of David through it all? His men was like, let me go over there and handle him. But David said, listen, even my own son is going against me. He's seeking my life. My son that has come out of my loins. How much more? Can't get any worse than that. Let him be. Perhaps the Lord has allowed this. Let him do and say what he wants. Because perhaps the Lord will look at my affliction and requite me. You see, we must be very careful that we do not do this to others when things happen. We never want to open our mouths and gnash upon another when they are going through things and aha. And then at the same time, there are others who have done that to you. They may be doing that to you right now. You're going through a stage, a phase in your life where you're in need, where you're in want, when you're truly just being transitioned, but they see this as an opportunity to throw stones at you. You may have a Shemei in your life, but I'm here to tell you, God will vindicate you, because you're going to see further in Samuel chapter 19 and beginning at starting at 18, where David is being reestablished on the throne. And here comes Shemei. Shemei seems to know the tea and know when everything is going on. He knows when David was exiled, and now he knows he's back in power. Each time his mouth, you see, Shemei is one of those bitter and sweet can come out of his mouth. Double-minded. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So here he is saying he deserves all this stuff in verse 16 for all he has done to the house of Saul. And now he's back in his position. Now that David has been established again on the throne, now he's saying something different. And in all of it, Shemei is just trying to save his hide. So let me read you 2 Samuel chapter 19, starting at 18. And there went over a ferry boat to carry over the king's household and to do what he thought good. And Shemei, the son of Gerah, fell down before the king as he was come over Jordan. And he said unto the king, let not my lord impute iniquity unto me, neither do thou remember that which thy servant did perversely the day that my lord the king went out of Jerusalem, that the king should take it to his heart. For thy servant doth know that I have sinned. Therefore, behold, I am come the first this day of all the house of Joseph to go down to meet my lord the king. But Abishai, remember Abishai from the last time, the son of Zeruiah, answered and said, shall not Shemei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed? And David said, what have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah, that you should this day be adversaries unto me? Shall there any man be put to death this day in Israel? For do I not know that I am the king over Israel? Therefore the king said unto Shemei, Thou shalt not die. And the king sware unto him. When we choose the higher road, when you choose to trust God no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. When David was in exile and he was going to a place to rest and to flee from Absalom, he trusted the Lord. Regardless of what was going on, he did not raise his hand to him. And even when his throne had been established again and he was going to sit on the throne, he did not take that opportunity, now that he was back in power, to take his life. He gave him grace and he gave him mercy. And Shemei, he switches up depending on what's going on. If you're down, he's going to if you're down, he's going to walk on you. He's going to throw stones and dust at you. And when you're back in position, they're like, hey, don't take what happened personally. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mean it. You know, a lot was going on. You know, my dog died. My cat died. I lost my job. You know, it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but they made me think that X, Y, Z. Yeah. The double-minded man is as unstable in all his ways. And you'll find in later chapters, David kept his word. And even when Solomon came into power, Solomon gave Shemei again asylum and safety. He didn't take his life. He told Shemei, you can establish your home in this particular place, but do not leave this area. And of course, at some point, because of course Shemei thought that he was going to get killed because he's David's son. But Solomon gave him mercy. And he said, you may establish your home. I want to say it was in Jerusalem. I can't remember. But he gave him a plot of land, a place that he can build his home. But he was not to cross over and go to any other place. He's not supposed to leave this place. Or there's going to be judgment. Well, Shemei being Shemei, I think his servants ran away. So he got on his horse and he left. Because why? He is a person that is driven by his feelings, his needs. It's all about him. It's about him. He did what he felt like doing and said what he felt like saying when David was in exile. Now he's trying to save his hide. David is back in position. Oh, forgive me, forgive me. He gets forgiveness. His life is spared. David's son spares his life. He's established. He gets a place and his life is spared. But you know what? I want what I want. It doesn't matter what Solomon said. I'm going to go get my servants. And so he broke the oath and his life was taken. This is the character of a Shemei. Wishy-washy, back and forth, opportunist, really. And sometimes you may have such a person in your life. But in that, I want to tell you that you need to look up. Don't do back to them. Don't do an eye for eye, a tooth for tooth. You know, David lived in the times that you had every right to take the life. It was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Do back to them as they've done to you. That was what the times that David walked in. But he chose to put everything in God's hands. He set his face to the Lord and the Lord established him. And Shemei, by the merit of his character and the shiftiness of his heart, ended up losing his life. Don't be a Shemei to other people. As hard as it may be, don't rejoice when people are falling out of grace. Because you know, things can happen in people's lives. And even people we read about, things may happen to them. You don't want to. That's why sometimes I'm so careful. I don't call out people's names. Now, some people, If the Lord has given them the anointing to call out names and to say X, Y, Z, I can't knock it. I don't know. I can't say how God will move or he will not move. But I have not been given that. Will that change? I don't know. But I hope not. Because I don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people, I guess, need to be called out, but that's just not the area in which God has me. Because sometimes, guys, we have to be careful in that, because sometimes people are brought low and certain things will happen in people's lives, but yet they are still God's called and anointed. And so if you're casting stones and you're doing things, you find yourself being in the crosshairs of God's wrath. That's why it's better just not to do it unless you know the Lord has called you to expose and to say who, what, when, where. Just don't do it because you feel like it. And even if God gives you that mandate, I believe even then people still need to be careful that they never step out of the guidance of God and just put people out there because they want to. You don't want to be a Shemei. When you are Shemei and you are rejoicing in the destruction, you get happy when the relationship breaks up. You get happy and you rejoice when you hear someone has lost their job or someone's ministry fell through. We don't want to do that, guys, because guess what? They're still alive. And so if that person's still alive, that means God's not done with them. They're still getting his grace and his mercies. So therefore, we must have the same grace and mercy towards others, even those that will hurt us. Because when you put things in God's hands, believe me, people who do wrong, people who walk in that Shemei disposition, it's going to come back on them. It just is. That's how sin goes. A person that's quick to shed innocent blood, a person that's quick to speak ill by your mouth, by the mouth, the running of the mouth, a person can be entrapped. And it's interesting because I have done some videos today that really ties into both. Well, I did it yesterday and I'll upload them today. And they both tie into something like this. Just speaking ill, just talking just because you can. It speaks about the froward mouth. The froward tongue shall be cut out. And it speaks also just about people that they revile and they disdain people and they just have a disdain for others. God will vindicate you regardless of all the Shemei eyes that's around you. And do not allow yourself to walk in that disposition of Shemei, to rejoice, to curse, to throw stones. The word of God says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. Shemei not only cast one stone, he cast many stones, and he was throwing dust, and he followed David, and he shamed him. But I'm here to tell you, even in that, the Lord witnessed it. Heaven and earth saw what had happened, recorded that day that Shemei went against David. Because you see, what was happening to David, guys, was really based on his sin with Bathsheba. From the time David sinned against Bathsheba, that was one thing. But then David killed Uriah, killed Bathsheba's husband, and took his wife. The Lord said, a sword shall be in your house. So Absalom, what he was doing, yes, this was a result of prophecy. But even then, even though David was going through and he was experiencing the repercussions of his sins, Shemei was not justified. The Lord still had his hand on David. So we must watch what comes out of our mouth. In everything, put it in God's hand just like David did. David holds this position was, hey, let God be glorified. This may be his will, and if so, so be it. Let that be your disposition, guys. Be mindful of what you do to others and what you say in their downfall, in their wilderness period, in their exile period. Because sometimes, guys, it's just a temporary transition, but they will be reestablished again. You don't want to be a person that you always got to come back and say you're sorry. Just put a gate about your lips. You don't want to be a person you're always repenting of something when you can choose to make righteous and just and godly decisions at the start. And when you are established again, and God establishes you, because believe me, where you're at, you're not always going to be there. You may be surrounded by Shemei eyes, but when he reestablishes you, don't use your position to do wrong and to do evil. Leave your enemies to God. Leave those who goes against you to God. In the book of Psalm, we see how often David cried out to the Father in different times of his life. And we must be in that same habit of crying out to God, trusting him to vindicate us, and knowing anything that happens in our life, it's because he allowed it to be so. But in it all, we shall not curse God and die. Job continued to hold on to the Lord, no matter all the Shemei eyes that were around him, accusing him, those who left him, those who betrayed him, those who scoffed at him, those who respected him, that changed their behavior towards him because they felt, oh, look at you now, look at you now. You thought you was all that. But God was getting ready to give Job more than he had at the start. So in it all, guys, you don't want to mess up your blessing. You don't want to compromise or taint the outpouring that's coming by stretching out your hands to the Shemei eye in your life. Be still and see the salvation of the Lord. And at the same token, you do not want to stop the windows of heaven from pouring out upon you because you're cursing others. Pray for people. Be still. Show mercy. And the Lord will look on that. He smiles at that. You don't need to take care of your enemies yourself. God will do it for you as you give mercy, bestow grace, show the character of God in all your dealings. And he's going to honor and protect you and vindicate you in the end. In either scenario, do not give into the Shemaiah in your life, the Shimei's in your life, and do not be a Shimei to others.